Josh, good morning to you. How big of a deal is it that the SEC just can't find their way to the Natty the last couple of years?
No, I'm sitting in Atlanta, Georgia this morning. It's a huge deal. I don't know if it's like front page of AJC, but it's a huge deal. I was listening the last hour, and Cam made a point about Indiana most resembling an SEC team. And RC before that said, I think Miami most resembles an SEC team. Well, the problem is neither of those are SEC teams. So no matter which way you go, it's an outside entity that is most reflective of what used to be the identity of this conference. And, look, both of those guys played in the SEC. I'm telling you, if you just go to an SEC practice 10 years ago, what stood out the most is, yeah, the starters are really impressive. Mm-hmm. It's the ones they're redshirting. It's the 22 through 60 that you look at and you say, wow, man, that guy's not even going to play for Alabama this year. That doesn't exist anymore because those guys are playing at Michigan State. Those guys are playing at Washington, Arizona State, et cetera. And it was sort of a foregone conclusion that this new shift in errors in college football, it was going to have an impact. You just didn't know maybe it was going to have this glaring and this immediate an impact. And then it also hurts that you got guys that once resided in this conference, Dan Lanning at Oregon, Kurt Cignetti at Indiana, Mario at Miami. You've got them leaving the conference and then duplicating those results they once participated in enjoying down here elsewhere. Yeah, it stings. It stings a lot for folks in the SEC.
All right, my two former SEC players. How much does it sting, Cam?
Is.
How much does it sting?
You look so hurt.
It doesn't sting, but I believe in accountability, all right? And I think that the SEC is still at a rate of not being in a situation that other conferences are in. All right, get to your point. Well, the conference scheduling, non-conference competition is still the glaring obvious that other conferences get to bypass. Look at Ohio State. Ohio State gets to play Iowa State, or they get to play Michigan State. They get to play these off-brand teams, and it goes as a tab of a win. Well, you still got a Georgia that still has to play at LSU. They still have to play a Florida. They still have to play these very competitive conference games. Now, my challenge to the other conferences, Big 10, Big 12, ACC, hey, let's do a joint kind of year-end annual competition that sees more competition in other type of conferences. Yeah, am I biased? Absolutely. But when you start to see these bids in the college football playoffs because of the better records, they're not playing the competition on a regularity like the SEC is.
Come on now, Auburn played Mercer and Ball State this year.
Yep, but Auburn also played South Carolina. They also played at Texas.
Not very good
so
this year.
Here's what I'm going to say. SEC has this motto, it's just different. They should change it.
Just means more.
To we ain't different no more. That's what they should change it to.
Bro.
Listen, I went to LSU. I was one of those people that was always like, nah, it's about the attrition. It's about the fact that you got South Carolina and then Georgia, and then you got to go play Kentucky, and then you got to play Florida. I was that guy. That's me. I used to get up here and act like Paul Feinbaum with a fresh edge up. That was me. You can't be that no more. Because still, as we're talking about it, guess what? Bama was still there. Oklahoma was still there. Ole Miss was still there. Georgia was still there. It wasn't like they looked at their schedule and don't put them in. It's 18 million of us ranked in the top 25 at the beginning of the season. So we get the benefit of the doubt. And then we waltz into the college football playoffs, and most of our wins against each other. Alabama got a win who they beat, Oklahoma. Ole Miss got 2 wins who they beat, Georgia. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the SEC, what Josh is saying is the truth. We used to win because of depth. Think about what Miami did last night, losing players because of targeting, both of your corners down, bringing in freshmen that come out and make plays. That used to be us. It's not that they're taking the players. It's that they are adjusting to what the new era of football is better than we are, because we used to get them all because everybody wanted to play there and everybody was willing to wait, and everybody knew if they played there and you played 1 year for Alabama and you was an All-American, you'd be top 10. Now you can go top 10 from anywhere and you can win a championship anywhere. We ain't the same no more. And you got to stop sitting up here hanging out with Paul Feinbaum.
And you can get NIL money anywhere too. Go ahead, S.A.
Well, you know, nobody's wrong, but I am disappointed in RC's description of how things are, because usually when RC explains, he usually throws in, Josh, you don't know this about RC. I'm about to tell you something about RC. RC, you know, periodically he likes to be, he likes to come across as this relationship expert, And so he always brings up relationships. And so what I'm saying to you is that what he didn't say about the SEC directly, and I'll do it for him, is that cats ain't feeling you anymore. They're not feeling you anymore. I know Cam can relate. I know Cam can relate to it. Hey, they ain't feeling you. And it ain't just the second stringers anymore. You got some all-world players that saying, we don't have to be in the SEC anymore the way that we used to. We can go to Big 10. We go to Big 12. We can go to the ACC. We could do this. You see some of these cats on Miami, how they looking? You're going to see, think about that for a second here. Now, we look at the SEC conference, okay? Look, under Kalen DeBoer, he's a good coach. He just ain't in the same class as a Nick Saban. So there's a precipitous drop-off there. We get that. Really, the landscape started to change, one could easily argue, when Georgia won back-to-back national titles. Because you found yourself looking at the rest of the SEC and saying, where the hell y'all at? Let's get to Auburn. We got Cam Newton coming on first take. It's the only time, Josh, it's the only time, RC, that Cam came on first take with straight attitude. When Auburn, I never seen this man complain. He didn't complain about the officials more when he was playing in the NFL.
He was hurt.
We've been in that for over a decade. In one show, he complained more about the officials with Auburn when they went there, got the uniform retired, well deserved. We all know I'm proud of our man Cam. But they ruined his weekend. Wasn't Auburn that did that. Wasn't Auburn not being good enough. No, it was the official. This is what Cam was doing. This is what he was doing, okay? I'm just saying to you, I'm looking at some of these teams in the SEC, Arkansas, Auburn, Florida. This ain't the days of Urban Meyer. They don't, and Tim Tebow. Florida don't look the same. That's why they had a head coaching change, okay? Kentucky. Don't get me started with LSU. I've never seen anybody more happy about Lane Kiffin in my life than I saw RC when Lane Kiffin decided to go to LSU. Hell yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm happy about that. He was ecstatic. Why? Because of who he was replacing. That's why, because they wanted to get that brother up out of there. The governor of Louisiana, went away from politics to call out Brian Kelly, okay? This is how bad it was. So I'm just looking at some of these stuff. Now you got Oklahoma added to it. Missouri had a good season. You get it. Mississippi State. Let's not act like everybody in the SEC is worth playing against, and they go up your cachet if you beat them. There's some mediocrity within the SEC conference. And that's really the story right now. We used to didn't look at it that way. We just focused on the top-notch teams because it was about 5 or 6 of them bad boys. Now that's not the case. All of them look beatable. And that's what's going on right now with the SEC. The allure is gone.
Time of the year. Hello, Chris Fowler on minimal sleep, but he did say that he fueled up with a little tea and honey, so he is ready to go. Chris, let's start with the thriller that was last night. What really stood out to you?
Well, the fourth quarter, I'll never forget. The 4 lead changes. It was a strange game as it unfolded, but so lucky to be able to call it, document it with our crew, and there's a lot wrong with college football, and that's where the focus often is. But when these games unfold, you see these teams compete. You see a 10 seed and a 6 seed, 2 teams that were not supposed to be there. A lot of people wanted to see Miami left out, compete that hard. And I really did hate to see Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss come up short because of what they put into this and what they've been through the last couple of months. And they have that pass, broken up in the end zone. They'll talk about that for a long time, with no flag there. But Miami, in the end, Carson Beck, he had the last word, and Miami could be a team you write a movie about too, if they can get the job done at home a week from Monday.
Is there a feeling amongst Mario Cristobal and all of the coaching staff that the U is back, or are they seeing that only if we complete this task can we start to consider ourselves with some of the great teams and having this program back where it's supposed to be?
If you want to ask Mario Cristobal that question to piss him off, I guarantee you can do it, about Miami being back, because no one really knows what they mean by back. They're not going to win, 4 championships in 9 years, which is what they did. They're not going to be as good as the 2001 team that crushed Nebraska, which I think was one of the greatest teams in the history of the sport. You're not going to get back to that. But Miami not being relevant, Miami not winning the ACC, which they still haven't done, by the way, was the source of a lot of angst and some serious questions. And I think Cristobal has grown a lot as a coach. I think he grew a lot from last year to this year. Because, Ryan, you know what it is. November 1, they lose to SMU. And a lot of people said, and you could understand why they did, here we go again. Cristobal's team's going to fade down the stretch. They're going to underachieve. They're going to have all this talent, and they're not going to get in the bracket. And damned if they didn't just ignore that, go back to work, win emphatically, got a lucky break when Duke beat Virginia. Frankly, I don't think they get in if Virginia wins and gets the ACC automatic bid there, because there was no ACC team in the bracket until Miami got the at-large. They needed a break. Once they got in, you're right. They were galvanized. It was hard to win in College Station with that Aggie crowd and that wind howling. They got out of that. No one thought they'd beat Ohio State. They outplayed them on both sides of the ball at the line of scrimmage. And last night, they won a different way. But Carson Beck running the ball in to cap a 75-yard drive was not what I expected to see last night.
Well, I want to look towards, tonight's game. And I'll first off say, I said this to you off camera, but I'll say it in front of the world. Your analysis of, the college football game is something that's beautifully or poetically kind of positioned. And I appreciate you for that. You, as well as, Kirk Herbstreit is probably the best doing it, where from that former athlete approach, those things translate and you make it, so digestible. But for the game tonight, Indiana versus Oregon, you got a coach in, Coach Cornette versus a Coach Dan Lanning. Beating a team or playing a team twice, right? How or what is something that we, not necessarily seeing as much of Oregon or seeing as much of Indiana throughout the season should be focused on that we're probably not really having an eye on yet that's going to come down to the determining factor that you may see?
That's a good question. Thank you, by the way, for the compliment. I appreciate that. I'm very grateful to be able to do what I do. Indiana, we saw them rout Alabama in the Rose Bowl, and I came out of there saying, there's not a better team in the country. How can you be better than what Indiana is? And defensively, they don't have Stephen Daly, one of their best players, their best edge pass rusher. They have had to make do against Alabama with that. Now they're going to have to do it today and again Monday if they want to win a championship. But they have a lot of the right ingredients, Cam. I think if you were around that group, you'd really appreciate what good teammates they are, how much they care, how much it means to them, how smart they are, how well-schooled they are. They come from all these different programs. They come together, and they're beautifully coached at Indiana. And it's, again, it's not Hoosiers in my sense, because it's not Milan High School trying to go against the big city schools with a bunch of 5'8" guys. These guys are great football players, right? I mean, Gene Hackman isn't coaching this team. Cignetti's a very different guy than Gene Hackman, and I don't think they're a cuddly underdog. I think it's just a really damn good team that does it the right way.
You want this, you got that. No way, watch